with my friend and colleague Jesse Reitberger.
Hello.
And Jesse, first of all, I wanted to make this video with the two of us because Jesse helps a lot of people with all things financial, and I thought it'd be good for him to give us some advice as, and I'm talking as a potential buyer, and also from the perspective of the challenges that millennials face in their goals and aspirations. So Jesse, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, just in brief?
Okay, so hey everyone, thanks David for having me on. I'll give you a little bit of an overview. I've been in the financial services industry now for almost 7 years. I started working over at National Bank Financial Wealth Management, but moved over to Investors Group. One of the main reasons for that is because of the emphasis that Investors Group puts on the financial plan. This is something that is near and dear to my heart because I think financial planning is one of the biggest things that's overlooked within the financial services industry, and the benefits of a financial plan outweigh almost any other thing that you could be doing as far as your finances go.
Okay, so obviously this is our first video. We may find that we want to progress to do other videos, maybe do series. So what Jesse and I did is we went through a few key things that we would like to talk about, and let's start of course with what you do most of the time of your day, which is helping people with retirement planning. But I want you to talk to us specifically about retirement planning for millennials and why millennials have maybe a different perspective on what financial planning is and should be.
Yeah, so a new statistic came out a couple weeks ago. This was a statistic that came up from CIBC. And what they said was the average Canadian is going to need approximately $750,000 saved in order to retire. Now, with millennials, that comes with a lot of baggage, right? On the one hand, saving that amount of money seems somewhat impossible. You're coming out of university with lots of debt and you're young, so it seems like retirement's a long way off. But I'll tell you right now that if you do a little bit now versus trying to do a lot in the future, you're going to find your life is a lot easier.
Okay, so the idea is start.
Yeah.
Don't procrastinate, don't overanalyze.
Yeah.
Let's get going. Just a side question and side thought I have for you is, do you think that the idea of retirement, do you think that's going to be different for millennials moving forward versus, say, our parents' generation? Maybe you can comment on what you expect people will do as far as work longevity and health things and so on. Do you think that has a factor into how much they should save? And
absolutely. So a lot of the older generation, like the boomers and so on, retirement to them is walking away from work and traveling and staying at home and basically doing activities where that they enjoy. But millennials, when we've looked at what we want to do with our lives and what we want to do with our careers, usually our work is centered around the things that we enjoy. We want to get some satisfaction. There's some morality that's coming out of our careers. And so one of the things I think for millennials, retirement won't necessarily mean completely walking away from their work, because most millennials are very engaged and loving what they do, which is a great thing. But what it will mean is giving millennials the freedom to say, you know what, I only need to come in 4 days a week, or I only need to come in once or twice a week to do my job, and the rest of the time I can be traveling, I can be with my children, grandchildren. I know that seems far away, but it'll come up like no time. So
the idea of almost a semi-retirement or a flexible type of retirement is probably going to be more realistic for a lot of millennials versus the cold turkey, no working. And then of course we know that people are living longer, so that's going to make saving a bit more organic, right? Not so black and white.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another reason to work with someone like you, is because you can move and flex with how their life changes and their goals adjust and so on.
Yeah, for sure. Like the whole idea of financial planning, it's not this rigid process, right? Life happens. You have kids, someone might get sick, someone retires, someone loses their job. All of these aspects need to be considered when constructing a financial plan and a retirement plan and so on. And so when we look at putting together a plan, whether it's for a millennial or for someone who's in their 40s or 50s or whatever, we're not just putting them in this box and saying in order for you to get there you need to do these things, because obviously life happens and things change, right? And we can adapt and adjust your plan to those specific changes,
which is very good. So what about kids' education?
Yeah, so I myself just had a baby back in June. He's almost 4 months old now, and one of the things that a lot of parents are going to face around the time their children turn to the age 18 is having to pay for university. At the end of the day, most millennials right now are coming out of their post-secondary education ridden with a lot of debt, and one of the main reasons for that is because their parents either didn't know about the registered education savings plan or didn't take the time to properly plan for the cost of their children's education. But the average millennial, if they have a baby who's a newborn and they save approximately $175 a month, they'll be able to get a maximum grant from the government of about $7,200 for each one of their kids. And with the Canadian child tax benefit, the ability to save that $175 a month has become a lot easier for parents and younger Canadians.
So you're probably finding that a lot of Canadians aren't even aware of this program, this registered education savings program.
Yeah, they're either not aware or they know a small piece of it, but they don't know all the value that it can bring to your life and your children.
So again, another concept that passes on to saving for education is just start.
Yeah.
Start somewhere, put some money away.
Yeah, exactly. So if $175 a month is too much, right, start with 50, start with 25, start with something, because every dollar you put in, the government's going to kick in 20%, right? There's very few investments that can yield a 20% return year over year. Right. So this is one of those investments that you can make for your children's future. Start with something, and as you get used to not living with, that extra $25 a month or whatever, add on to it, right? Go to 50, go to 75, go to 100, and you'll find that plus the investment returns will make it very easy for you to send your kids to school.
And that's something, again, you can help people with. You can help them with how to invest and the complications of maybe having multiple kids with one or several plans and all that stuff. You can help them with that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about we talk about saving money? We hinted towards it earlier about starting. What should the average Canadian, or let's even focus on millennials, what should millennials be saving on a regular basis outside of retirement and education?
Yeah, so I would say that the average, as I spoke to last time, the average Canadian is going to need approximately $750,000 to retire. And so essentially the way to get there, I would say, is twofold. Number one, buy a house, right? The average house in Winnipeg is approximately $300,000. You're basically, by purchasing a house, you're putting aside, $1,000 to $1,500 a month for the next 20 to 25 years, assuming that asset grows by a rate of about 2% a year, which is pretty conservative as far as real estate is concerned. You're looking at an asset that's worth $450,000 to $500,000 by the time millennials reach the age of 50, 55 years old, right? And then the other side to that is save about 10% of your income. So I know that sounds challenging, and if you make $50,000 a year, $5,000 a year sounds tough, but what I would do is, before you get a chance to spend any of that money, take some, put it aside. It can be in your tax-free saving account so that you'll still have access to it, but it's really important that you get into the habit of saving regularly. The 10% rule, I've found personally that I can put aside 10% of my income and I don't really miss it. And if 10% seems too much, start with 5%, start with 2.5%, but make that a regular habit. Before you do anything with your money, put something aside for yourself for later. Because at the end of the day, a lot of millennials, a lot of clients come to me, they're like, well, what if I pay down debt first? I'm like, you could do that, but at the end of the day, if something happens, you lose your job, you get sick, whatever, you can't call back Rogers, you can't call back your landlord, you can't call back the bills that you paid and say, hey, you know what, I'm in a bit of trouble, can I have some of my money back?
Right. Once you paid it, you paid it.
Exactly.
And those are fixed costs. So the 10%, I might have maybe said the wrong thing, but 10% should be outside of your saving for retirement, or that should all be in that 10%?
So I think that 10% should kind of be all encompassing.
Okay.
I mean, I would certainly put a chunk of that 10% away for retirement, and then have a chunk of it for more short-term goals and savings. But me personally, like 10% of my income goes specifically for retirement, and then I save maybe 50 or $100 a month on top of that for, say, a vacation or a short-term thing that I might want. Maybe it's the down payment on a car or whatever the case may be.
Okay, so good advice. So what other challenges that we already haven't hinted towards or talked about do millennials face financially?
So I think there's two fairly large challenges that most millennials face. Number one is student debt, right? Most millennials are coming out of college. I believe the average Canadian millennial is coming out of university with anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 of debt. This is better, of course, than our American counterparts. Thank God for that. But this debt is something that's weighing down millennials' ability to purchase houses and to grow their assets, because they're always having to make payments and paying interest on this debt. One of the big things that is also facing millennials is the overload of financial information that they have access to. So out there, millennials can find information. Okay, should I buy a mutual fund? Should I invest in real estate? Should I invest in gold? Should I invest in cryptocurrency? Should I invest in XYZ company? Should I buy stocks? Should I buy bonds? What should I do, right? Because of this overload of information, most millennials get overwhelmed with their plan of attack, their strategy for how they can improve their financial future. And so what ends up happening is they end up doing nothing. Where if you do just about anything, that's better than just sort of sitting around and hoping things get better.
So really, because millennials, or let's just say young people in general, because they're young, they have time to put their money to work. And so the sooner they start, the better, versus say someone who's middle-aged or older.
Absolutely. I in my practice, I've come across, doctors, dentists, very high-paid professionals, right? Some of whom are making anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000 a year, but they never develop the right habits at a young age. So now I'm dealing with a doctor currently who's in his late 50s and he's looking to retire. Because of his high income, he's still going to be able to get there if we attack the financial plan properly. But had he started when he was in his 20s, 30s or 40s, just putting aside 5 to 10% of his income every year, that goal of retiring when he's 65 would be a lot easier to hit, and he wouldn't have to make as many sacrifices.
So making those habits at a young age and almost forgetting about it is a good way to do it. Like, you just start it, make it a habit, so it's not even painful.
Yeah.
And then in time, your money will grow, and you won't have to put in as much money to begin with, or in total. So I bet you, in the case of, like you said, that doctor, if he would have started younger, his capital to put in would have been a lot less.
Yeah. And
it would have grown much more.
Exactly. So, most of the student doctors who are in residency, right? They're coming out in their residency, and they might be making $60,000 to $80,000 a year. Working at the hospitals or in clinics or whatever the case may be. If they start at that point just setting aside, $6,000 a year, $8,000 a year, and they continue to get into that habit, then by the time they, if we just take the example of $8,000 a year, right? Over the course of 20 years, that's $160,000 that they've set aside, not including the investments that could grow on top of that.
So very, very powerful. So again, take advantage of the fact that you're young and start.
Yeah.
Start saving, and then again, making a plan with you will be quintessential to reaching any type of goals, because if you don't have a plan, it's going to be hard to achieve those goals, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the. I like to use the analogy of athletes, right? If you look at the best athletes in the world, right, the people who win gold medals at the Olympics and whatever, or the championship Stanley Cup winners or whatever the case may be, like, they don't just go out on the ice and play, right? They don't just show up and win these gold medals. Like, they've had years of planning and training and nutrition and all this other kind of stuff in order to make their gold medal dream come true, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with our finances. Whatever we want to do financially, whether it's travel a lot in retirement, whether it's whether it's save to buy a big house or go on regular vacations, whatever that is, having a plan in place is going to make that dream become a reality. Whereas if we're just kind of winging it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. So we should also talk about banks. And
yeah.
I worked in a bank. You did as well in previous careers. And of course, we have maybe a bit more jaded opinions of banks,
yeah.
or less kind opinions, but with valid reason.
Yeah.
And we've seen it. We've seen how they work and operate and so on. What have you seen, or not what have you seen, what do you think is good for millennials to know about banks, and why they should probably not work directly with their bank for financial planning and saving and so on?
Yeah, so a bank is a great tool for keeping your money safe. Beyond that, I don't really see banks helping a lot of people. And the reason I say that is because banks make most of their money off of debt, right? So when you have debt, a car loan, a credit card, a mortgage, a line of credit, all of these type of things, banks make money because you're constantly making payments, you're constantly paying interest. Oftentimes what will happen is a bank will come to you and say, hey, listen, what we can do is we can use your house to consolidate your line of credit, your car loan, and your credit card debt, right? And when you do that, sure, your overall payments drop, but the only financial benefit here is if you're essentially paying the exact same amount as you were towards your principal. Otherwise, you end up paying way more money in interest. So the banks are not great for financial advice because they make money when you're in debt. Financial planners, investment advisors, whatever, we make money when you're rich. So the best thing for us is to keep you out of debt and keep you saving, keep you on track for your goals. So 3 things that I would always avoid with a bank. 1, don't go for the consolidation loan. It might be a good idea, but talk to someone else before you sign on that paper. Because if you go for that consolidation loan, the terms of that might be, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Whereas, 3 years of paying 7% interest on, say, a car, it's not the end of the world, right? Number 2, oftentimes if you're standing at a teller and you've got, say, $5,000, $10,000 in your checking account, the teller will say, oh, why don't you invest this money, right? They'll say you can buy a GIC and put your $5,000 in there. A GIC is a terrible investment. Basically what it is, it guarantees you a certain amount of interest over a period of 1, 2, 3, 5 years. But usually that amount is very low. We're talking maybe 1%, 1.5%, right? And that locks up your money. Now the bank takes that money and they lend it out and they make a fortune on the money that you don't have access to. Whereas if you had taken that and invested it in the markets, you'd make probably closer to 6 to 8% a year. So that's better.
Okay, so those are some of the tactics that they'll use, and it's not necessarily intended to hurt their clients. It's just what they do because at the end of the day, it benefits them more than...
Of course, yeah, and the people who are at the front lines, who are giving you this advice, this is how they've been trained, right? Like, it's not their fault. Yeah. They've been told that this is the best thing for a client. But at the end of the day, you staying in debt and not reaching your financial goals through proper saving strategies, investment strategies, and so on, it doesn't help you in the long run.
So we can probably say with confidence that if if people are riddled with debt, credit card debt, and credit lines and loans and so on, with the bank, that most likely they don't have a solid financial plan to begin with.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
And then the other side to that too is if you have all of this stuff and you don't have a strategy for paying it back.
Sure.
As I said, a consolidation loan could work, but there's an issue of cash flow there. When you consolidate, let's say all of your debts put together, you're paying $1,000 a month. Now when you consolidate, that payment is $500 a month, right? So this $500 a month is good. Now you have $500 that's free. But most people, when they have that free $500, they'll spend it. What you need to do is you either need to be putting that $500 towards the principal of this debt, or take that $500 and invest it separately. If you're not doing either one of those things, then you're losing way more money.
And losing time.
Exactly, and
right?
losing time. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So, cryptocurrency.
Yes, cryptocurrency.
Right, it's been in the news. There's lots of conspiracy talk about it. There's lots of things about how you should do it, what's coming up in the future, and so on. What do you think of it right now in relation to the markets, and what would you advise people to do in regards to cryptocurrency today?
Yeah, so right now, as of last year, right, 2017, cryptocurrency hit an all-time high. Bitcoin was worth about $20,000. The second largest coin, Ethereum, was worth about $1,000. And one of my personal favorites, Litecoin, was getting towards about $200 a coin. Now all of that's tanked. Bitcoin's worth about $7,000 right now. Ethereum's worth about $400 or $500, and Litecoin's worth about $60. That being said, cryptocurrency, in my opinion, is still in its infancy. The technology hasn't been widely adopted. It's not ready for all consumers. But I do think that it has its technological benefits. For example, with Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ethereum, you can essentially send money around the world without any fees, any transactions, any middlemen, right? So by investing in Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, these cryptocurrencies, you may have access to technology at early stages that allow you to do certain things that other people don't have. But this does come with a word of caution. Right now, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, any of these ones are super volatile, which basically means you could put in $100 and by the end of the day it'll be worth 50 or less, right? You could put in $100, by the end of the day it'll be worth 150 or 200. There's lots of ups and downs. And until we reach sort of mass consumer adoption, I don't think it's something stable. So if you're someone who is afraid of losing money, afraid of big swings and large volatility, I would stay away from cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Litecoin, any of this type of stuff. But if it's something that you see has technological value, as in, you would like to transfer money overseas to someone and not pay a huge fee, you see that there's going to be mass technological adoption coming down the road. Well, it's in its infancy, so you could make a lot of money down the road if you're patient.
So cryptocurrency is not something we should ignore, but it's something we should be weary of, especially from the fact that it's still the Wild West, and there's not a lot of adoption. So as people start to use it more, it should stabilize. Is what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
Like anything else. So I sort of make the analogy. Some of us are too young, but back in 2001 there was the .com bubble, right? Basically, websites were the investable asset of the day, and everyone was buying website, pets.com, glue.com, whatever, right? If you had a .com, you were worth some money. But at the end of the day, these websites didn't make any money. They didn't have a business. They didn't really do anything for anyone, and so the market dropped. Same thing last year with cryptocurrency. If you had some type of coin, people were investing in it. But now I think the market has sort of realized, okay, well, a lot of these coins are jokers. They don't really do anything. They don't really have any technology behind them. But the ones that do, and the ones that get adopted over the long run, are going to have staying power. And I think they're going to be used, within our lifetime by the populace.
Yeah, and it'll be a big game changer.
Yeah.
And any final thoughts, Jesse, what we talked about today, or anything else that's on your mind? Anything else you wanted to share with us today?
Yeah, I think with millennials, with all of us, you know, we have different challenges than our parents faced, you know, previous generations faced, and there's a bigger emphasis now on sustainable investments. So when we look at investments, I think millennials, all of us, really want something that both makes us money and has an ethical component to it. And there are investments that we can choose that, you know, don't invest in gambling or tobacco or you know, adult entertainment or weapons or war, or, you know, or oil and gas, things that pollute, right? So if you're looking for that type of investment, if you're looking for a plan that both meets your financial goals and your ethical goals, I'm the right person to help you.
That's very good, because that's something that not everybody is doing in your business, in your world.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think could help a lot of people, because money is a personal thing. And usually what we put our money into is what we care about the most.
Yeah.
So that's very important. So how can we reach you? How can somebody get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way to reach me is I have an email. I have a phone number. David will put that in the post below. But I also I frequent the mosque. I work at Investors Group, 444 St. Mary Avenue, and I'm here almost every day, so you can pop by for a visit if you'd like.
Yeah, we're in his office right now, 444 St. Mary Avenue.
St. Mary Avenue, 9th floor.
9th floor. And yeah, it's a nice view of the Winnipeg clinic here. And yeah, so he's able to meet with you or even talk with you by email or phone, whatever is easier.
Email, and you know what, I have time to come outside the office too. So if you want to meet for coffee somewhere else, that's fine too.
Great. Okay, so hopefully we'll be seeing you more in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Let's keep doing this.
Videos,
This is fun.
Thanks for joining us.